What does it take to succeed in the world of venture capital? And what are VCs in this region looking for when they invest this year? You're watching Inside AB. I'm Jeremy Lawrence, and I'm joined today by Bernd Debusmann. Okay, Bernd, you interviewed Walid Hanna, who's the CEO and founder of Middle East Venture Partners. What did he have to say on this subject?
Well, essentially what he told me was that the entire ecosystem that's necessary for this process of VCs and startups to work together really wasn't there. A lot of the startups weren't really ready when they were searching for funding. There wasn't that many players in the VC space at all to begin with, so there wasn't that much money to go around. So there's a lot more competition for a lot less money. And in general, there's a lot of moving parts that are necessary to make this whole process work, and that wasn't quite there when he began in 2010.
Okay, you say not quite there, but some figures that he gave you, I think, really demonstrated just how much this space has grown.
Yeah, to put this into perspective, Middle East Venture Partners' first fund was for $10 million, and there was maybe a handful of companies they invested in. Now, recently, he announced the $250 million fund, which he's doing with Mohammed Alabar, who's the majority stakeholder in Middle East Venture Partners. And they're looking at maybe 25, 26 companies. So you can see, the difference between $10 million in a fund and $250 million in a fund is really quite enormous. And it just goes to show how far this whole space has come.
Okay. What's driving this change?
Well, in their case, in Middle East Venture Partners' case, they invest entirely in tech startups. And what he said that this is a perfect region for tech startups. A, there's a very young demographic. B, mobile phone penetration is very high in this region. And most importantly, it's not just that people are looking at Facebook or Instagram or surfing the web. There's a lot of commerce that's being done through mobile phone applications. A lot of the startups they've invested in are, for example, delivery applications, online cookbooks, that sort of thing. So there's quite a lot of money going back and forth through these sort of mobile phone applications, which makes this region kind of particularly good for startups that work in that space.
Okay. If we move a bit more to the grassroots, in this week's edition of Arabian Business, we had a piece from businessplanhelp.me with their tips for startups. They ran through some of the criteria that these venture capitalists like Walid Hanna are looking for. Can you run us through these?
Yeah, there was 7 of them. The first one was scalability, that there's the possibility that a startup's business plan could be scaled up so that it can grow. Of course, that's the whole point of venture capital is you invest in something, it grows, and then you exit it. So that's extremely important. Also there's the potential that it'll be exited. There has to be signs that there'll be interest in what a startup is doing in the future, right. Which makes the whole thing possible. Of course, there has to be like a legitimate expectation of decent returns on an investment. They'll be looking at the management team. If this is something Walid Hanna told me also, they have to have faith that the management team knows what it's doing. And part of that is making sure the product is validated by the public and by the customers. Because of course, if it's not, a product won't work if customers aren't interested. There has to be a market for something, and there has to be, probably most important, a strategy within the startup to go to market. Without those things, it'd be very difficult for a startup to succeed. So that's essentially what a VC is looking for.
So you've got to tick a lot of boxes, and I know we've talked a lot about this in our startup brand. You don't just have an idea. There's lots of things you have to do. But Walid Hanna, he had something to say about this subject, about the human aspect of this. It's not just checking boxes, is it?
Yeah, I thought that was extremely interesting because he said it's not just about the business on paper, how a business might look. The VC has to trust the startup and vice versa. He compared it to kind of a courtship. You meet someone, you continue meeting that person, and eventually you get married. He said it's kind of a very similar process between the VC and the startup. There has to be trust on both sides that they can support each other. If for example, he told me if a startup needs help, they have to trust the VC enough to say so that the VC can perhaps offer some assistance or put them in touch with the right person to help the business move along. And only then will a VC take the step of investing money in a startup.
Okay, okay. So what we're saying though, from what you learned from Walid Hannah from these different interviews, is that it's looking like 2018 is a very promising time to be an investor and get your returns, or to be someone with a promising idea needing money.
That's right. He used the term that the stars are aligning for VCs in the region now. So I think, I mean, it's encouraging both for the VC and for the startups. I think, I mean, one thing I took away from this all was that if a startup has a sound business plan, there's a strong possibility now that if they tick all those boxes, then a VC will look at them and seriously consider whether they're worth funding.
Okay, well, entrepreneurs, it's time to get to work this year. You've been watching Inside AB. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on every weekday at 10 a.m. So we'll see you next time. Thank you.